We all know it's hard enough to build a business, to start something new, taking it to growth, adding it to the challenges of the pandemic. It's a miracle in itself. In today's episode of FNB Talks, I'm going to introduce you to Vanshika Wadhwa, co-founder and creative director, Fio Pop. Vanshika came from a very different industry altogether and launched a new concept of restaurant, scaled it, and turned it into a successful brand that it is today. Stay tuned in this episode as she shares insights from her journey as an entrepreneur. Vanshika started her journey as a design intern. These days, she handles creative direction and management at Fio Pop, an interior architecture graduate from LaSalle College of the Arts. With the design being her passion, she went on to her journey with her father in his Mandarin restaurant venture, Fio Cookhouse. A few years into the business, she launched a totally new concept under her parents' branch called Fio Pop. Launched in 2021, Fio Pop is a popular casual dining restaurant situated in Saket, New Delhi. The restaurant is known for its minimalistic exteriors and interior with eye-catching colors. Welcome to FNB Talks, Vanshika. It is amazing to have an inspiring and creative leader like you here in our community.
Thank you for that introduction. That was really kind. You've done your research. So thank you.
Taking this conversation ahead without any further ado, my first question to you is, how was your journey like a transition from design to restaurant? Having worked with a design consultant, and how was it like getting into the restaurant industry and that too with so much of responsibility on your shoulders, being a co-founder?
So before I became a co-founder and when this started in 2015, it was fairly accidental. And it came from a place where I was on a personal level not feeling very satisfied just working an interior design job. And I think, I'm very grateful that I've been a part of Fio since inception. So you've always kind of shadowed the process. You're hearing about what's happening, but I was not actively involved at all. And I'm fortunate that this was there because in that interim period where I was thinking of my next move, I just started working on the graphics, social media, photo shoots, like the creative part of the more, I guess, the design part of the job. And from there, one event came in, another event came in, and next thing I knew, it had been a year or so, and I was really happy because I enjoyed. I think I enjoy people. I enjoy creative work, and I was working with my family, which was very. I mean, that was challenging because you're not groomed for that, you're not trained for that, and you're trained. I had a very like my education or my work experience prior to FIO was very corporate. So suddenly coming into a system where you're an entrepreneur and you're working with fellow entrepreneurs who are your family, I think that led to a lot of growth in terms of working in India, working in an Indian
Correct.
family business setup. And but yeah, it was refreshing and the transition was slow. I didn't jump right into anything. I took my time, and I think a good 2 years after just doing events, marketing, having fun with what I knew and understood, and meeting a lot of interesting people, I think
Mhm.
that's when I was like, I want to create a brand of my own, which I resonate with more, which is not something that you only feel like doing, which was more for my age group, I guess, where I was 25 at the time. And that's when I started working on Fio Pop as a concept. And frankly speaking, it took us a long time to even come up with the name, to come up with the, what we want to do. So it took its time. And then COVID was another, of course, a setback, but it was again a fresh start where we tied all the loose ends together. So we gave the brand a lot of time to take shape, and then it
Mhm.
was born last year. So I think that's how and I don't think design or any education, like there's so many lawyers in particular who change industries, and I don't think that leaves you. I think it just is a part of how you approach life or your new work, and that's the same for me. Design thinking is a very big part of my approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, this is. Coming on to my next question on this, like Fio Restaurants has the top 5% of the population in terms of earning as its audience.
Yeah.
So, how was it like curating delivery experience for the audience during the pandemic? Also, what's your take on the online food delivery that we have?
I think Posist knows very well that delivery for us was not our forte. And Lalit from your team is particularly very helpful for me to understand a lot of things because you guys obviously have clients across different segments in F&B. And yes, we were not
Uh-huh.
built for delivery. You don't create palaces or you don't create physical experiences or brick and mortar experiences for something that has to come to you in a box. It just doesn't work like that. So it was
Correct.
very challenging and very different. And of course, competition like 2020 to 2022, the number of delivery brands that have surged, whether it's through home chefs, home bakers, or just delivery brands that have taken off even further in this process. So, I mean, it has our sales have accelerated with delivery, and I think that was my core focus in the first year of COVID as well, because you didn't have a choice. That was your only revenue stream. But yes, we weren't, it's never been our primary focus, but we are working on some newer concepts now which are delivery forward, which are for more than the 5% of Delhi. So yeah.
So next question is like something I actually wanted to know. So I and we here are, a huge fan of the ambience, the design, the
Right.
interior, and
Right.
especially the exteriors of the Fio restaurants. It always feels so good and, amazing when you are dining close to the nature there. In these
Right.
days, we see the trend of market going towards the courtyards and outdoor dining emerging. People
Mhm.
prefer the outdoors more than and over the indoors.
Absolutely.
So as an expert, what do you advise on making an outdoor restaurant a successful one? Also, what are the needs to be put in the place right to get it?
So obviously, no one formula for anything. It's also, I think you have to evaluate your own personal strengths, and that is where I feel, my sister is an interior designer who heads all is also an interior designer, but she heads like the main concept and look and feel, the initial mood boarding of how the brand should, like it happened for Fio Pop as well, how the brand should really take any look and feel, like how the look and feel should come through in space. And when it comes to the outdoor parts of things, which is our original Fios, Garden of Five Senses, Cookhouse, um, Mr. Wadhwa, my father, he's got green fingers. So he is really good with landscaping, and it's something that my sister and I blindly trust him with. And so I think that you have to evaluate your strengths. And I think for us, it was very clearly a strength for us that we understood outdoors. I think Fio as a brand came to life only because of the venue we saw at Garden of Five Senses when this is way back, like 12 years ago. But I think that inspired my father to be like, this is the kind of space I want to create and I want to work with and enhance.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no one formula, but yes, now there are a lot more options and ways to kind of get green treatment, whether it's in a terrace or vertical gardens, etc. So I think what you need to, I think the North Star, the grounding fact when you want to create an outdoor space which is successful, I think you need to kind of correlate it to the experience you want to share. I know it sounds very generic, but if you want to like a courtyard or versus a veranda versus an Italian garden versus like a jungle, so there are lots of different ways. I mean, outdoors, there's so many possibilities. So I think for us, it was our
Absolutely.
strengths that were already leaning in that direction, which helped us. But yeah, I think for other people, it starts with the vibe.
Absolutely. Also, now is like a question that I think everyone might have their, in their brains these days. So these days, people go out and eat at the restaurant by clicking pictures and putting them on social media. While it
Absolutely.
does help with the word of mouth, but there is an added pressure on the restaurateurs to pay attention towards the food presentation and especially the design. We want to understand that is there something that you often factor with your design and food presentations, and if you do, then how do you ensure a great food presentation and design throughout the customer experience?
So I think with Fio Pop, I'll take this answer from that brand, this question from that brand, because it is very important. I knew my target audience is, they're the younger millennials and Gen Z. everyone lives online, it's important because that is your first tool to kind of gain awareness. Today you'll see something online and in fashion, beauty, lifestyle, food, travel, any industry which is to do with entertainment. And at the end of the day, food is entertainment, right? Like when people, the first thing you want to do
Correct.
on a day off is go out and eat somewhere nice. So I do think that it's a very inevitable part of your industry now. I mean, it's not something that we have a lot of dishes which are very ugly but very delicious also, like ugly delicious as a term. But having said that, yeah, like I feel like you eat with your eyes first. So it is important that
Correct.
something looks nice. And we are particular about it, but we don't drive ourselves crazy. Like if it just doesn't come together, we'll be like, okay, go ahead. But yeah, this is, I think when we did Fio Pop, from the crockery to the cutlery to the colors to the presentation, there was a lot of work, like especially during the COVID lockdown, there was a lot of work put into that side of the project.
Mhm.
And I think again, it's like an intrinsic trait because we value design, we value aesthetics. So I think it just kind of, so it was like an organic thing.
So how do you ensure like there is a consistency in the food presentation and you give a very good customer experience throughout?
Yeah. So there are obviously there's no foolproof way, unless you're a QSR, of course, and you have a very, very strong base kitchen. I think we're still in that we create fresher experiences.
Mhm.
And we have, I think you need a good team. You need a team which understands what resonates with your thinking. And we do have like a structure in place where recipes are kind of locked in, presentations are locked in. If there's any leeway given, it's obviously given to a certain degree, being a fresh
Mhm.
experience, but it has to be within the framework and within the ideology of the brand. Having said that, there's always a
Correct.
one-off situation and it's a learning, so you get it right the next time, if not now. A process and
Absolutely.
structure, that is the right way to do it, and a good team that understands you.
Totally agreed, Vanshika. So in Fio, like Fio offer quite, a diverse menu and has something from a lot of different cuisines that I observed. Can you give me a few tips on the menu designing and engineering basically? Also, how
Hmm.
one must select the variety of cuisines that they must incorporate in their restaurant?
I think I'm going to go back to that point. It only comes down to your strengths and or the strengths that you hire for your team with your vision. And I think for us, it was a very organic. It was the obvious next step that okay, we wanted to do a European cafe because a cafe, firstly at large, is very European forward, which traditionally used to be called continental. Cafes are always
Correct.
conti. So the thing is, it was very understood that we are going to keep that, but we didn't, like, I personally didn't want to limit the menu that we couldn't use
Hmm.
ingredients from around the world. Like if I wanted to use a hint of wasabi somewhere, if I wanted to use like a Mexican chili or like, something, I didn't want to feel restricted, or even Indian spices for that matter. And we do. So the thing is that we kept our heart in Europe and we're kind of inspired by the rest of the world. And that is our food ideology. And it gives us flexibility and doesn't confuse the customer at the same time. So that is there. And in terms of engineering, I think you need to be very clear of the format you're selling, the size of your kitchen, what can you actually service, what's your back end like, because it would be amazing to have like 120 dishes out of the same prep, but is it actually deliverable? And I was a part of another convention a couple of months back, and this topic was very, it was a hot topic, because we were like, what is the right size of a menu? And I think
Correct.
everyone came down to like 40 to 50 dishes. And that is the sweet spot depending on the size. But of course, if you have a massive restaurant or if you run an all day dining concept, which is like, or a club, you think very differently. But I think in the segment that we are placed in, that is usually what we do, 30 to 40, 45 max. And yeah, you have to see what your strengths can deliver. So that's the right spot for us.
Correct. So my last question to you, Vanchika, what is your vision going ahead or any advice you want to give to all the budding restaurateurs?
So I think the advice, I'll start with that, is just that you've really got to get some kind of satisfaction, something out of this industry, because it's not just glamour at all. Like most glamorous industries, it's not just glamour, it's a lot of work. So you've got to love what you do. And It's taken me my own time and journey to be here, and being called a restaurateur to me still feels new because I relate to being a designer first. But having
Correct.
said that, I mean, I think there's a lot of scope if you have the right attitude, if you have the right amount of patience and love for what you do. And yeah, so that's my advice. And in terms of my vision, I think currently my focus is my baby, which is Fio Pop, and we're working on a few new brands in the delivery segment and in the premium segment. So I feel like we do premium very well. We understand it, but we're very selective about the kind of venues we want to open, when we want to open, and post COVID, I think we're being a little more conservative. But yes, the future is a lot. So we have a lot coming up.
We would love to see what Fio Pop has to offer now. Thank you so much for your time
Thank you.
and inspiring us, Vanshika. I hope you do it always and forever, like you've always
Thank
done.
you so much. Thank you for having me.